What is up guys, welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to build a gaming PC for less than $1,300 right now. In fact, this is a build that you can assemble for closer to $1,200 depending on your exact part selection, using current up-to-date market pricing. A system that's going to be amazing for 1440p gaming and gaming at 1080p at stupidly high frame rates, and a system that should be not only pretty easy to put together, but gives you a little bit of future-proofing too. I'll be walking you guys through the whole build process today, the parts I've chosen and why, some of which might require a little bit of explanation, and looking at those all-important gaming benchmarks a little bit later. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. Intel Gamer Days is here, with big savings to be had on desktop CPUs and gaming notebooks powered by Intel Core Ultra series until September 14th. Save big on the Acer Predator Helios Neo 16 AI, powered by an Intel Core HX processor for up to 50% better performance per watt and longer battery life. With ultra smooth and responsive gameplay and full platform connectivity from the Intel Core Ultra HX processors, what's not to love? Intel's also the exclusive PC partner for Battlefield 6, and to celebrate, eligible purchases during the Gamer Days sale will also receive a key for Battlefield 6 too. Learn more and check out the Gamer Days sale at the first link in the description below. Now I'm going to start straight away and rip off the band-aid of controversy that I'm sure you're looking towards, and I am of course talking about this, the 5070. Now hear me out, in current market conditions, this is the best GPU to buy for a build for between $1,200 and $1,300. Now you might be thinking, James, yes, but the 5070 has an MSRP of $549, and you can get a RX 9070 for that, which is more powerful. The truth of the matter is the 9070 is a marginally more powerful GPU, but it's going to set you back a lot more money, and I've actually seen this RTX 5070 in the US for around $529. That's crazy. Here in the UK, pricing is good too, which makes it a really sensible bet. Yes, it's a little bit light on VRAM, but for 1440p, it is sufficient, and I do think Nvidia's proprietary suite of features, their ray tracing and DLSS, is still better marginally than the competition. Now in terms of which CPU I'll be pairing it up with, I've gone for this, the AMD Ryzen 5 9600X. Now when it comes to CPUs, you've got a couple of choices. If you want to get this build closer to 1200, you could go for the 7600 Non-X instead. But again, I've seen this particular CPU retail for around that $200 mark, which is really competitive considering the actual power and performance you're going to get. And if you look at older last-gen Ryzen CPUs, AMD have broadly maintained the $170 to $220 price bracket for their top-tier Ryzen 5 CPU. In terms of cooling, I've gone for this, the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120 SE. I'll link everything down in the description below, and a fun fact for you is that through those links, this is the best sold CPU cooler that any of you guys have bought, which is absolutely insane. Now, the reason for that is quite clear. For the money, this thing is just insane. Like, it and its brother, the Phantom Spirit 120 SE, which as far as I can tell is virtually identical, beat out lots of other options at far more expensive price points, and gives you really powerful cooling that is going to work not only for our Ryzen 5 today, but even for much higher end CPUs. Now, the main way it does that is via this dual heatsink tower assembly. This gives you a lot more cooling performance than a standard single tower cooler, and you can see here as well, we've got 6 heat pipes that run all the way through our first tower, down into your copper cold plate down here, and then back up to the second tower for maximum heat dissipation. It also provides quiet audible noise levels, and the 2 included ARGB Thermalright fans are basic but more than adequate when it comes to getting the job done. Now in terms of memory, I've gone for Corsair's Vengeance RGB DDR5. I'm hoping this is going to fit, but I haven't tested it yet, so we might have to swap out for the non-RGB model a little bit later. I'll link the right kit of memory that's compatible with the cooler down below. Preference would be this because of the nice RGB heat spreader, and the 6000 MHz speed is perfect for what we need. This particular kit is optimized for AMD. That basically means it's got the Expo profile. You just need a RAM kit with Expo support. You don't necessarily have to get one that's explicitly built for AMD CPUs. As far as the SSD goes, this Crucial P3 Plus is going to be my choice. Now, Crucial and their P3 Plus lineup are consistently some of the best value SSDs on the market. This and the MP44Al are a great choice for those of you building on a bit of a budget. I'm going to recommend the 1TB drive, but you may want to opt up for the 2TB derivative, give you a little bit more space for your Steam library. Again, it all depends on how tight you're trying to keep the budget for today's build. Motherboard, I've gone for something very, very boring, and it's boring not because the product is boring, but because I've used it in loads and loads of builds. And fun fact, this is actually our #1 sold motherboard over on GeekaPC. That's our UK pre-built company where you can buy not only high-end gaming PCs, but this exact system if you want. I'll link it down in the description below. We're UK only for now. Do you want to see us come to the US and Canada? Let me know. Now, this particular motherboard, as I say, we've had an enormous amount of experience. I feel like I know this particular motherboard inside out, and it provides everything that you need for a decent motherboard at a good price. You've got Gen 5 for the graphics card, Gen 5 for the M.2 drive, the AM5 socket, which we know AMD are going to continue to support for years to come. We've got 4 RAM DIMM slots, so that gives you, again, a further 2 DIMMs spare to upgrade the system later. The I/O is really, really good. You get Wi-Fi, only 6E, but that's fine. USB 3.2 in the Type A, and of course the Type C variety with up to 5 gigs of bandwidth, and an old school PS2 port, which is kind of fun. It does everything that we need. As I say, power delivery is good, memory overclocking is good, and it's a real pleasure to build with. I also think that despite the PCB being a little brown in some places, it looks rather nice and is often one of the cheapest B850 boards on the market that you should actually consider buying. For the power supply in today's system, I've mixed things up a little bit. Typically, I tend to gravitate towards the Corsair RM E series. This is a little bit cheaper, a little bit less premium, but it's going to save us some cash. This is the MSI MAG A750BN. What's nice about this is it's been upgraded to actually be PCI 5 ready, and that means we get our high power PCI Gen 5 connector that you're going to need for a lot of graphics cards. Now, this power supply is literally box fresh, and when I looked online, is one of the best value, I think the best value power supply that gives you the Gen 5 option. Now, you do trade off other creature comforts for the pleasure. It's not modular, and that for a lot of people is going to be a put off. So you can see all your power cables are pre-wired in. There's not a huge amount of them. They should be pretty easy to manage. And some of the power cables are actually wrapped in this like kind of older style shrink. That's obviously, again, a cost decision. Something like the Corsair RM750E is going to give you a lot nicer cables, but charge you another 20 to 30 pounds or dollars for the privilege. Now, I think there's only one component left to talk about, and that is the case. And again, it's another popular case of mine. It's the Phanteks XT Pro. Now, I'm a bit of a, I was going to say Phanteks fanboy. I probably can't say that as someone who reviews things, because not everything that they make is good. Their new Evolve X2, for example, very difficult to build in, needlessly so. However, this isn't. This here, I think, is, in my opinion, one of the very best kind of simple, affordable ATX mid-towers you can get. The main reasons I like it, though, are not only its price point, but we get this nice tempered glass panel on the side, which is really good. The panel thickness feels pretty decent too for the price. You've got a power supply shield here, which is actually ventilated to help with airflow, and you've got the ability to add fans on here and run through your GPU power cable. At the very front of the case, behind this toolless, see, look, I can even take it off with one hand. Toolless front panel, which has dust filtration built in. You get 3 included 140mm ARGB fans. At the back of the case, you then get a further 140mm fan. Airflow in this thing is amazing, and support for big long GPUs and standard ATX motherboards in a form factor that's pretty simple. And it's got USB-C on the top. Some of the rival cases, like I think the Montage XR, or certainly the Fractal, oh, what's it called? The Fractal something mini. It's an optional extra, which I don't like. This all included as standard. Pop Air, the Fractal Pop Air. Alid, who does all of our TikToks, YouTube shorts, he's the man. So shout out Alid. Kicking off with the CPU installation, you can see here we've got our CPU socket, which is going to push the arm down and out. That will then release the socket cover. And in the top left corner just here, you'll find a triangle. This should match up with the triangle on the CPU, which you can see just there. And with that correctly in place, I can then drop the CPU in, secure the cover down, and return the arm back to its original position. I'm then going to do the RAM by installing this into the 2nd and 4th slots on the motherboard. To get that lined up, Corsair logo is facing outwards, and just repeat this for as many RAM DIMMs as you've got in your build. This is nice and easy. Just pull back the little retention clip on the slot, remove the slot itself, and then slide the P3 Plus into place. That's going to then secure with the little toolless mechanism, and the main slot cover or sort of heatsink itself is going to go back on, little something like so. CPU cooler is then next up. I'm going to pop this onto the motherboard outside of the case, but leave the fans off for now. In order to install this, I can just show you the manual. It's the easiest way. You can see here, you've got to remove the plastic AM5 brackets. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice they're already missing from my board, so that's one step I haven't got to do. And then it's going to ask us to add some stoppers, some screws, and these little silver mounting plates. That's going to then allow the cooler to screw in nice and easily. And as you can see here, the fans are going to be completed at the very end. So go ahead and do just that. These 4 plastic stoppers around each of the screw threads for the CPU socket, followed by the silver metal brackets, and then the 4 screws which go through into the built-in motherboard backplate that comes as standard on AM5 motherboards to actually enable you to screw the cooler down. Don't forget, of course, the thermal paste. It's then a simple case of moving the motherboard assembly into the case. Now, what you need to do is you need to check the locations of the standoff on the motherboard. Here you'll be able to see we've got 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. If you then check out the case, you'll be able to see these match up with 3 standoffs at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. If they don't match up, the holes where they need to be installed are marked up, so simply remove the standoffs with the included adapter tool or a pair of pliers and put them into the right locations. Once you've done that, the motherboard can then slide into place, which is nice and easy in this case. There you go, little something like so. You might find it easier to actually have the case down flat for this, or you can do it upright, whatever works best for you. Then you just need to fasten down the 9 screws into the 9 standoffs. Again, 3 along the top, 3 along the middle, and you guessed it, 3 down the bottom. Okay, so the next step I think is going to be the power supply and all of the cables and the wiring. It's a lot easier to do this now before things like the graphics cards start to get in the way. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this power supply is a bit more of a challenge to install than the normal models you're going to see on the basis that it isn't a modular unit. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and figure out which of these modular cables we need and which we don't. Let's have a look at the ones we need. So the first one is going to be this one. So this is your 24-pin motherboard power cable. We're also going to need for the build today that Gen 5 power cable I talked about a little bit earlier. So we're going to pop that in the mix as well. CPU power is going to be pretty important for the build today too. So let's locate our CPU power connector. That one just there. Now, with a bit of luck, it will have a second CPU power cable. Yes, it does. That's because the motherboard for today's system does require an 8 and an additional 4-pin, so that's good. And then I'm also going to chuck in a SATA power connector just because these can be useful. That's Molex. These can be useful for things like RGB and fan hubs and that kind of thing. So they're the cables that we need, and you can see there we've got those nice and separate. And then what I'm going to do with these remaining 2 cables is just tie them up nice and neatly, keep them out of the way. As I say, we're not going to need them in the build today. Once the PSU is good to go, I'm then going to slide it into the back of the case, a little something like so. And you should see here that our screw holes are going to line up. So we've got in total 1, 2, 3, and 4. The screws you need for this, by the way, come included in an accessory bag at the back of the case. I'm then going to go ahead and pop all the power cables into place, or at least all the ones that I can, including the motherboard to the far right-hand side. This is the biggest one. The CPU power cables I talked about earlier, so the 8 and then the 4-pin, which we get by splitting one of the 8s in half. And I'm also going to plug up the front panel cables for good measure. That includes HD audio to the bottom left. It has a pin blocked out, so it'll only go in one way around. JFP1, or your front panel cables, to the bottom right. Again, only goes in one orientation, followed by the 2 USB 3 connectors, the larger Type A and the smaller Type C on the right of the motherboard. And with that all said and done, I can finally move on to the GPU. Now, I realized earlier I didn't talk too much about which GPU model I've gone for. This is Gigabyte's sort of MSRP 5070 design. In all honesty, this, the Prime from Asus, the Ventus from MSI are all going to work absolutely fine for the build today. Just go for whatever is the best value for money in your region. Again, all the links you need will be in the description below. Now, I'm going to hover this over the top PCI slot, and you can see, yeah, that looks pretty good and fits A-OK. And by the looks of things, it's the very 2 top slot covers that I need to remove. So I'm going to go ahead and just unscrew the slots, which come pre-fastened into the motherboard. Cheaper cases will use these like single-use snap-out PCI slots. This Phanteks case uses proper PCIe slots instead, which is way better. It's a little rattly when they fall out. And then once they're out, it's a simple case of sliding the GPU in. Get it all lined up with the slot. Lovely stuff. Bit of pressure, and we're good to go. I'm going to use these same screws that I just took out to actually secure the card back into place. and then run the GPU power cable into our RTX 5070. Yeah, nice and easy. So there's one thing left to do before wrapping the build up, and that's to figure out if the CPU cooler fans fit or whether we need a RAM change. I must admit, I wasn't expecting the middle fan to be the issue. It won't go in with the graphics card in. So let me take the GPU out, secure the first fan into place, followed by the second. Okay, so it technically fits, but I think we can probably all agree that it would look better if it fit flush. So bye-bye to our Corsair Vengeance RGB, and hello to this T-Force Vulcan kit. You could also swap it out for the non-RGB Corsair Vengeance, but mine's in another build. And I actually did a quick price check, and this Vulcan kit at the time of filming is actually cheaper than the other Vengeance alternative. So hooray, we've saved some money too. Gonna slide these into the same RAM DIMMs I just took the other ones out of. So the second and fourth, a little something like so. That should buy us the clearance we need for our second fan. Yeah, that looks a lot better. And then I can put the graphics card back in, secure that into place, and once that's finally complete, we should have ourselves a finished gaming PC build. The bit you're all interested in though is not only how good does this system look when it's all powered up, but how does it perform? I'm gonna finish screwing this graphics card in and I'll rejoin you for the gaming benchmarks. Moving through to look at performance then, and it's safe to say that this awesome value gaming PC build really does provide great frame rates at 1440p. On your screen now is a summary of all of our results. The only game here not to be tested at 1440p high was Fortnite, which we always test at 1080p competitive settings. Now taking a closer look first at the easier to run esports games, your Fortnites and Marvel's Rivals. Fortnite, for example, pulled in over 280 frames per second at the 1080p competitive preset. Marvel's Rivals pulled in 110 FPS at 1440p high, not too bad. And Apex Legends got pretty close to the in-game 300 FPS cap with an average at 1440p high of 284 FPS. AAA titles like Doom the Dark Ages work well too, just shy of 75 FPS on average in Doom at 1440p high, while F1 2025, a personal favourite of mine, ran really well. 1440p high, we saw over 200 FPS on average. You can of course buy all the parts for this PC in the description below and find latest pricing for Amazon in a range of regions and Newegg, or even buy it pre-built from us here in the UK at GeekaPC. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to get subscribed. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.